Margaret Westfield had built an empire from nothing, turning a single oil well into a Fortune 500 company that employed half the state of Texas. But at 72, her greatest challenge wasn't corporate raiders or market crashes. It was her son. Jackson Westfield, 35 and worth more billions than he could count, had everything except what his mother wanted most for him. A wife who would love him for who he truly was, not what his bank account contained. "Every woman you bring home calls me Mrs. Westfield in that syrupy voice," Margaret told him over breakfast in their Dallas mansion. "They compliment my jewelry before they even look at your face." Jackson pushed his eggs around his gold-rimmed plate. "Maybe that's all there is, Mama. Maybe real love is just a fairy tale." Margaret's weathered hands, which had signed billion-dollar deals, trembled slightly as she set down her coffee cup. "Boy, if you believe that, then I failed you worse than I thought." That afternoon, Margaret drove her rusty pickup truck, the same one she'd owned before striking oil, to the Goodwill store. She bought 3 faded uniform dresses, comfortable shoes, and a worn coat. Then she applied for a job at Mercy General Hospital as a night janitor. "I need the work," she told the supervisor, hiding her manicured nails in her pockets. "Been cleaning houses all my life." For 3 weeks, Margaret mopped floors and emptied trash cans, watching the night shift nurses. She studied them like she once studied geological surveys, noting who stayed late to comfort patients, who brought homemade soup for sick colleagues, who worked double shifts without complaint. Then she found her. Elena Martinez worked in the children's cancer ward. Margaret watched her sing Spanish lullabies to frightened kids at 2 a.m, saw her give her own dinner to a homeless man in the emergency room, witnessed her stay 4 hours past her shift when a little boy with leukemia was scared of the dark. Elena treated Margaret with the same kindness she showed everyone, remembering her name, asking about her arthritis, sharing her thermos of coffee during breaks. "My grandmother was a janitor," Elena told her one night as they worked side by side. "She used to say that every honest job is a noble job. That cleaning up after people is a way of caring for them." Margaret smiled, thinking of her own grandmother's hands, rough from washing other people's clothes. The next week, Margaret mentioned to Jackson that she'd heard about a nurse at Mercy General who might need her car repaired. She'd noticed Elena's beat-up Honda wouldn't start after her shift. "Why don't you go by there tomorrow evening?" Margaret suggested innocently. "Maybe around 11, when the night shift takes their break?" Jackson, desperate to get his mother off his back about marriage, agreed. He arrived at the hospital at 11 sharp, wearing his most expensive suit. The valet parking attendant nearly fell over himself taking Jackson's Lamborghini keys. Jackson walked into the children's ward looking like he owned the place, which, given his donations, he practically did. He found Elena reading Charlotte's Web, to a room full of bald children who should have been asleep hours ago. "Excuse me," he interrupted. "I'm looking for Elena Martinez. Something about a car repair." Elena looked up, confused. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" The children groaned at the interruption. One little girl tugged on Elena's scrubs. "Please finish the story. We want to know if Wilbur lives." Jackson felt foolish in his $1,000 suit surrounded by children in hospital gowns. My mother said you needed help with your car?" "I don't know your mother," Elena said gently but firmly. "And my car is fine. But if you'd like to stay, you're welcome to listen to the story." Jackson found himself sinking into a too small plastic chair as Ellen continued reading. He watched her voice change for each character, watched sick children laugh despite their pain, watched her brush away tears when she thought no one was looking during the sad parts. When the story ended and the children were finally asleep, Elena walked Jackson to the elevator. "Your mother," she said quietly. "She wouldn't happen to be the new night janitor, would she? Mrs. Margaret." Jackson's heart stopped. "What? She has the same eyes as you. And calluses on her hands that don't match her job. More like someone who worked with oil rigs than mop handles." Elena smiled. "She's been asking a lot of questions about me." Jackson leaned against the elevator wall as the pieces fell into place. She's not just any mother. She's I know who she is, Elena said softly. Mrs. Westfield, right? I looked it up after I got suspicious. She's been mopping my floors for 3 weeks. The elevator dinged. Jackson stepped inside, then turned back. Will you have coffee with me? Not because of who I am or what I have. Just coffee. Elena studied his face. Your mother is a very wise woman. But I don't date patients' families or hospital donors. It's complicated. Then I'll stop donating. Elena laughed despite herself. Don't be ridiculous. I'm serious. I'll find other hospitals, other charities. I just want to know the woman who stays up all night reading to children who can't sleep. 3 months later, Jackson found Elena in the hospital parking lot after her shift, sitting in her car with tears streaming down her face. Bad night? He asked gently. He'd been bringing her coffee every Thursday night, never pushing for more than conversation. Lost one, she whispered. 7 years old. Loved dinosaurs. Jackson climbed into her passenger seat and held her while she cried. That's when he knew he loved her. Not because she was beautiful or kind or good with children, but because she let herself break over the pain of others. They were married the following spring in the hospital chapel, surrounded by Elena's colleagues and dozens of children who were well enough to attend. Margaret wore her best dress and sat in the front row, crying happy tears. During the reception in the hospital cafeteria, Elena pulled Margaret aside. Thank you, she said simply. Margaret hugged her daughter-in-law tight. For what, dear? For loving your son enough to mop floors for him. And for seeing something in me worth all this trouble. Margaret looked across the room at Jackson, who was attempting to teach a group of young patients to dance. Honey, any fool with eyes could see you were special. I just had to make sure my son wasn't too much of a fool to notice. Years later, when Jackson told the story at his mother's funeral, he would say that Margaret Westfield had drilled for oil all her life, but her greatest discovery came with a mop in her hands and love in her heart. The hospital established the Margaret Westfield Foundation that day, ensuring that no child would ever face the darkness alone, and no honest worker would ever be invisible to those they served. In the end, Margaret got exactly what she'd wished for. A daughter-in-law who loved her son for his heart, not his money, and grandchildren who learned that true wealth is measured not in dollars, but in the lives you touch when no one is watching.